Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. It is election day in the United States, so let's try to fight the creeping sense of dread with temporal things and talk about card games. We've had tournaments in these last couple of weeks. Let's talk about those. Can we talk about those?
Please.
Let's talk about those. I went to our local shop league a little over a week ago now. You, this last weekend, played in an online tournament on the Bushy Road remote fight server.
Yeah, I was not able to make it to the tournament you were at. So I instead participated online in the crazy hours of the morning because I don't sleep. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But because I want to hear about you and your experience, Colton.
Oh my gosh. All right. Same locals, same shop league as before, just the second tournament for us. So the way that we have it structured is we meet every 2 weeks. We meet for just open play, followed by a tournament, followed by open play, followed by a tournament. We just kind of keep repeating that pattern.
Partly because we're the only tournament organized in the state at the moment.
It's a pretty quiet statewide scene. Our locals are actually, pretty consistently get 10, 12 people at major tournaments.
Yeah.
So, and some good players too. So we do have our shop open though, and this was the second tournament in the first season of the shop league, and we will be talking more about that because that is a whole conversation. But first, the tournament recap itself. I went 3-1. I brought Fate Apocrypha once again. Left feeling pretty okay. I told the organizer afterward that I played 3.5 good games. And I did feel that way, but I didn't. For some reason, I felt more like I went 2-2. Like, just when I left, the feeling that I had was more like I did okay rather than I did well, which was interesting considering that I actually, played very well for the majority of the night. So my first game was against an Amelia Waifu deck from Memory Snow. I've played this deck before. This is against a guy that I've had real trouble with for whatever reason. But in this game, I sat at 3-0 on his big combo turn. I had a money counter in hand. I chose not to play it and trust my compression so that I could have the stock to put together another Mordred combo. The bet paid off. I did cancel, and ultimately it didn't actually matter because I didn't need the extra Mordred because I was able to stick him for 5 off the top. Still, it felt good to make a bet on my own deck and win that bet. I was generally really happy with how I played in that first game. Second game, I played against that Gungale Bodyguard deck I beat last time. I had a roadmap for beating this deck. This isn't a great matchup for me because the level 1 combo is bombs, so it makes it harder to plus the Astolfo if I'm using the Astolfo combo to swing into those bombs. So it's important that I get to level 1 first if I can, and then obviously getting over a bodyguard is a whole thing in and of itself. But I have a nice tech piece to help me get over the bodyguard, that 3-2 Joan that gets up to like 21,000 or something with back row support. It's insane. So I had the roadmap, but I didn't have the color fixing. I didn't get my yellow into my level, and if I had done a better job of intentionally clocking and leveling yellow, if I had been paying more attention to that, then I would have been able to get that 3-2 Joan down. But as it was, I didn't. So I wasn't able to clear the bodyguard, which meant that my field got cleared, and I lost on that return swing. So there are a couple of things I wish I had done differently in that game. This is the half game that I didn't play well. I have the roadmap for beating this deck, I think. I know how to beat it. I just need to put it together and actually do it next time. And I know I'll be playing this deck again. The person who plays this deck actually ended up finishing second in this tournament. It's a really well-constructed, really well-focused deck. And I think Gungale is one of those sets, like Apocrypha, honestly, that is somewhere in like the middle of the large meta, right? Like it's slightly below the heavy competitive scene, but it's not bad. It's not something that is completely unplayable. It's in that middle where if you build something that's focused and is well practiced and knows what it does and does it well, you can have something that competes. So I think this Gungale deck in particular is a very, very good deck. And that's why it had success at our locals, which are, competitive locals. Like, people bring Konosuba and Love Live and Slime. There's high-level stuff. This beat AOT head-to-head, and probably the most compelling matchup of the entire night. This went head-to-head with one of the best players at our locals who plays Attack on Titan. And in that first round of games, they just went back and forth at level 3 for like 15, 20 minutes. It was really great to watch. But ultimately, Gungale won that game. So, this is a very good, well-constructed deck. It's not one of those games where it's like you feel bad if you lose because it's a deck you should beat. It's not like that. This is a good deck, piloted by a really good player. I do think I know what I need to do next time I face it. So I'm sure I'll be playing it again at some point. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to come back and tell you all if I get bodied by this thing after saying, I think I know how to beat it now. So, and again, the player is really good. So the person who runs it is really good. So it's not a bad loss. It's just one that, looking back, if I had played better, I would have had a better chance. Third game, not so much. I played Batman Ninja, and I had no real trouble. I made one catastrophic mistake that almost really cost me. But aside from that, it's Batman Ninja. I got him to 3/6, and then I killed him with an on-attack burn from the Jack at level 3. So in the last round, I got an Overlord deck, big level 1 combo, denies reverses, and then the burn 5 level 3. Once I got through my first deck, I was pretty set just because I was pretty well compressed. Again, I think I said this last time. I'm learning how to compress well with Apocrypha with the tools that I have. Maintaining field, milling myself out when I'm at 1/5 or 1/6. Obviously getting a lot of cards in hand, getting as many into stock as I can. So I'm usually able to compress 1 out of 4 in the 7 or 8 out of 28 to 32 range. Usually I have 30 cards left in the deck, usually 7 or 8 climaxes. So my compression isn't super, but it's definitely decent. And if I can get below that number, like I did in this game, I think it was at 7 out of 22 or something like that when I went into my third deck, it's compressed enough so that I'm not going to die. Overall, 3-1, generally happy with how it went. The guy who won played Love Live. He's been playing Love Live for a long time. Switched it up a little bit this time and decided to run a 2-soul combo. And in the last game against that Gungale deck, stuck 2 straight attacks for 5 off the top to win the game. Props to Braden. Great job playing the game's best trigger and riding that wave to a tournament win. He's a good player, that one.
Game's best trigger.
Game's best trigger.
Oh.
You've played against Haruhi enough times, you know.
Don't remind me.
So, overall, pretty good. I'm generally happy with how I did. You never like leaving a game on the table that you think you could have won, and I think that's a chunk of it. But overall, I'll take 3-1. I'll take the points from finishing top 3. So I would say that I was going to shelve Apocrypha for a while, but now with the changes that are coming to the Shop League tournament structure, I don't know what happens next. So we will get to that. First, Brandon, Bushiroad remote fight over this last weekend. How'd you do?
I think you hit on it a little bit. The real spark of my adventure was really choosing the right lines of play so you feel like you've played the best game you possibly could, and choosing the most optimal lines of play.
Yes.
So for the Bushiroad remote fight server, this month they had what was called a Staff Slayer competition. Basically, it's like a 16-man tournament, and then whoever wins the tournament gets to face off against one of the Bushiroad remote fight staff. Over the weekend, it was daylight saving, so it was a little bit shorter in numbers than the potential sizes that can normally get. The big thing is with those games, I played a various number of decks. Again, I brought Slime because I like Slime, and Slime is relatively easy to pilot for me now, even when I'm tired. So, it's a very good autopilot deck.
I mean, that happens when you play a deck hundreds of times.
You're not wrong. So I played against a few different decent decks. Played against Konosuba with the new stuff, looking with the Megamine level 1, the new one, and the early plays with the Unions. And then it was the old top end. So it had the Resonate, it had the Clock Kick, Megamine, Burn 4. So it had a variety of different tools. It was an interesting deck. And I think Konosuba doesn't really seem to have a final form yet of like what does the top end Konosuba deck look like. There's been a couple different variations of that.
Right.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's actually a really good and healthy sign of a healthy set, is to have a lot of those variations in it.
Yeah, there isn't a codified set of 50 cards that makes up the meta Konosuba build, in as much as there are going to be two, because there are two very separate top ends. Exactly what you're playing at level 0 and even at level 1 is still very much up in the air.
So I think that's fun. I think that shows sign of a little bit of growth in that. I think also part of it as well is that there's not really been major tournaments to decide it. If we look at the online Bushy Road remote fight, it's really more of a locals as opposed to like anything like spectacular.
Yeah, I think that goes for the entire meta, not just Konosuba. The entire meta over the last year has been just a bunch of unknowns just because we haven't had those tournaments.
So with that, as much as it's fun to talk about, it's also not something necessarily to take super serious because it's a locals event, essentially.
I mean, how many, it's, 16 people, something like that, single elimination?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to 16 people. This one had 6?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a super big group. We had some really good players there, so not to discourage the players that were playing, they were really good. But just as a kind of heads up, like it can sound different than what it is. So just kind of as a feel, if you guys were interested in doing it as well, they have typically a weekly tournament and then a monthly bigger tournament, which they have not announced yet for November, I think, last I knew.
So yeah, link to that Discord server in the description for sure.
Yeah, check it out.
And this isn't your first time playing in a remote fight, correct?
I have been playing in multiple times. So yeah, first off was the Konosuba matchup. Next up was played Review Starlight. It was Review Starlight from Japanese version. So it had the double Icy Tail end combo, which against a compression deck can be intense. Best way to avoid damage, though, not have climaxes, so they can't burn you. It was a rather close game, but was able to then surpass that one, top the tournament this time, and then play off against the staff. The staff brought a slime deck, very similar to the deck I had, so it was very much a mirror match. I felt really good in the first half, and then during the second half, the staff member began to overtake me, and I was like, oh no, this is not good. But it was a well-fought battle. I did end up sealing the win, partly due to having an additional clock kick Milim. I was running 2 of the Dragonoid Milims, so he ended up getting rid of one of them. I brought it out. Compression wasn't necessarily what I needed it to be to make it to work out the first time. So I brought it out a second time, getting the on-play burns both times, so that's fun. I got him up to 3-2, or rather it was like 3-4. He healed back down to 3-2 and then closed out from 3-2. I was able to triple cancel with compression to be able to seal out the win there. I encourage everybody to participate who can. It's a great way to play off against different decks. It is mixed format, so Japanese and English format, so as long as you are aware of it and prepared for it, that's a thing. I know typically Colton and I play English only, so it's a little different.
And they aren't all at 2 a.m.
Yes, that's correct. There's another one 12 hours later.
Yeah, Brandon likes to play, because of Brandon's availability, he is sometimes available to play at 2 in the morning, which is why he does. Normal, healthy people will tend to play in the one that shows up in the afternoon. So, I mean, feel free. Like, if you want to stay up super late, or if you are in a different part of the world and you want to play against Brandon, pop into the Bushy Road Remote Fight server. You'll probably see him there.
Yeah. Some people have to work on Sundays, Colton.
Yeah, which is why it doesn't make sense for you to be up at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
I work during the Sunday afternoon time. Deal with it. So, either way. So that's fun. That's a great opportunity to be able to play against different people, different decks. With the Bushy Road Remote Fight being like a locals, and our locals doing shop leagues. As we look at the shop leagues in general, because that's the current quote-unquote event going on right now.
Quote-unquote event? Why is it a quote-unquote event?
It's not like a regionals, but it's quote-unquote taking the place of regionals.
Hey y'all, Colton and Brandon from the future here. As we were uploading this, Bushy Road announced exactly what's going to be happening with Shop League Season 2, and it is nothing like we thought was going to be happening with Shop League Season 2, so we've decided to cut that bit and re-record it. Shop League Season 2 will not be combined with Season 1, despite what you may have heard. Season 2 will still run through the end of December, but Seasons 1 and 2 will remain separate events. And if a shop had between 2 and 4 events in Season 1, the first few weeks of Season 2 are going to be pushed back into Season 1 for that shop only until they reach 5 events. And then everything after that will be part of Season 2. So, if your shop had between 2 and 4 events, the first few events of what would have been Season 2 will be kicked back into Season 1 until you reach 5. And the reason for that is because participation is worth 1 point in the standings. So if you show up every week, you get the 5 points necessary to get your Mega Mean and Union promo.
One of the big things also is that points do not carry over from season to season. So if you only show up a couple times during Season 1 and a couple times during Season 2, not going to be eligible for the promos.
Right. And if you are in a store that had a shortened season, you need to make sure that you're showing up to at least 5 events to get
participation points.
Yes, to get the participation points. Or if you win an event, you immediately qualify. If you place second or third, you're already well anyway. But so yeah, in order to get the promos, you need 5 points, and you get at least 1 every time you show up. So if you showed up 5 times in Season 1, you're still getting your promo. If your shop played 5 or more events in Season 1, then that's just Season 1. However many events you played, as long as you played at least 5, your Season 1 is over. Season 2 starts with your next event. And that's literally hot off the presses from Bushy Road, was announced less than an hour ago. We just had a conversation with our tournament director, tournament organizer at our locals. So thank you, Brandon, not this Brandon, but the other Brandon, for jumping on a Discord call with us and helping us dissect all of this information in time for us to still get this up today. So appreciate you, man.
And just as a reminder as well, that promos will not be out until after Season 2.
Right.
So if you do earn promos from Season 1, you're basically looking at least January before even seeing them.
Right, and we haven't heard anything about any different promos for Season 2. I think the general consensus right now is that those promos will remain the same. You're probably going to get more of those Mega Means and Unions. So...
Well, as Season 2 begins this week and there's not been an additional announcement,
right.
We think it's very likely that it's going to be the same promos.
Right. Still nothing announced for 2021, although in the past, Bushy Road has taken the month of January off. Still no real idea what's going to happen in 2021. But we do know what's happening for Shop League Season 2, and now you know. So with that, back to past Colton and Brandon, who don't know any of this, but will now be talking about what might happen after Shop League. We don't know if there's going to be another Shop League at the beginning of 2021. We have no idea what's happening with regionals, trios, singles, anything. Bushy Road hasn't made any announcements. Normally, we would be getting the regional schedule for trios. I think it's very likely that we don't get that this year. I think it's very likely that we don't get trios regionals at all this year. I don't think that would be unsurprising, at least.
Yeah, especially with where we are going into lockdown number 2.
Yeah, especially because cases have been going up and we're going into winter and this isn't... It's very likely there will be more lockdown periods, especially in, the more heavily populated areas of the country on the U.S. side of things. Wouldn't surprise me if we didn't get trios. We might. I'm not saying again, this is pure speculation. Wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see trios. And I think obviously Bushy Road would like to have singles regionals in person. But they are doing something with the JP regionals that I think is really interesting. Those are kicking off later this month. And they are all virtual. They are all going to be played online. They're all going to be played over the last few weeks in November. It looks like there are going to be 17 different regionals, all of which are going to be taking place online. And again, JP format, so this isn't the English format. And the winners or, based on, how players do, they will be invited to nationals, which will be hosted online on Discord by Heart of the Cards on December 12th and 13th. Brandon, you think that this might be a roadmap for how Bushiroad could handle regionals in 2021 if they decide not to host in-person events.
I think it's a speculation for that to be able to happen. Assuming that this goes well, I think there's enough in place already, especially with the Bushiroad remote fight server. They have been putting out the potential for online play of this style for a while now. I think that if this goes well, which it should, because we've also had, realistically, we've had Anime Evo in the past.
And the invitationals. We've already had multiple major tournaments and multiple weekends of remote fight tournaments that have gone over generally pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, generally, very few errors.
All of which have been received well by community.
I think this is definitely on the table. Like, obviously, this is not going to be Bushiroad's first choice.
Well, I don't think it's anyone's first choice, really.
Well, no, of course not. And that's assuming a lot of things, right? Like, if we are still in some kind of lockdown mode / pandemic mode next fall, when singles regionals happen, is very different than if we're going to be in the same situation when trios happens. Could they do trios potentially over Discord like this? Oof. Do you think that they would replace trios with something else? This is, again, uncharted waters for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think that trios would be a particularly interesting format to navigate via online play. I don't know how well that would work. I think it's doable. And again, this is purely speculative, right? Like, again, we don't know. All we know is what Bushiroad has announced, which is that they're expanding Shop League for, Season 1 and Season 2 will be put together, and that's it. That's all we know. So 2021 is still a completely empty schedule for Bushiroad right now, as far as Weiss events are concerned. But I think based on the fact that they have shown a willingness to do something online, or at the very least Heart of the Cards, with Bushiroad's blessing, is doing something online, and that Bushiroad has run their remote fight server and had some success with it. And I think by this time, most players are capable of playing online. They have the setup that they need, etc.
And there's been a lot of ways to try to improve that as well for many. Because I know not everyone does. Because I know, for example, it took us a little bit longer to get an online playstyle of that format.
Yeah. And even then, I would argue that it is not as good as a good online client. But that's kind of neither here nor there. Point is, playing over camera, over a Discord server, has worked. It's been very effective. It's worked for multiple tournaments so far. I could see Bushiroad adopting this for official play. And I think that this WGP is going to be a testing ground, potentially. And Bushiroad's going to at least observe it and go, we can or can't use this. If they feel confident in it, then we could see a lot of online events in 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I will probably be tuning in for some of this. Y'all know I play 0 JP, and Brandon plays very, very little JP. So we are not, here to really talk about what to expect in the JP regionals and nationals. That's not something that we are in any way qualified to do. However, I will be paying attention not only to what's being played and who's playing it and all that, but also just on the logistical end of things. I want to know how well it's going. Because if it goes well, we could see this adapted for English play as well.
Definitely a really good opportunity to see these things happening. I'm looking forward to seeing the online aspect of this happening. And I am hopeful that with the likelihood that spring season will not be the same as it has been, I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully something maybe along these lines happening on the English side of the cards.
If there's no way to safely gather for a normal regional, I would like to see something like this to replace it, as opposed to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
God bless shop level tournaments. We love shop leagues and shop challenges and locals. They are the lifeblood of any good card game. I would not want to see regionals in 2021 strictly replaced with shop level tournaments. I would like to see some kind of, and if that has to take place online, then so be it. But I would really like to see that.
I think this is going to be one of the things that's going to be really interesting to watch, is because, especially with this, with Anime Evo, we're seeing a rather large pool of people gathering all at once for these tournaments online.
And I think it's interesting that these JP regionals specifically, they're all going to be taking place over the course of like 3 weekends. So it's all going to happen really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that kind of thing could also be done in English, and if they would do it. I don't know. Super speculative. Everything's up in the air at this point, but I think Bushiroad is potentially setting a precedent here for something they might do in English if it works here. So yeah, still a lot of unknowns, but I would imagine before the end of the year, we will probably hear something that'll give us some indication of what's going on. At the very least, what's going to happen at the shop level, maybe for the first few months of 2021. But in any case, yeah, we will be back. Open gameplay on Thursday. I will have a deck profile for Realsies this time, next Tuesday. Gonna continue this Konosuba thing that we're on. We're gonna be on this Konosuba thing for a while, and then follow it up with gameplay of that the following Thursday, and then next Clock Talk 2 weeks from now. So
the next Clock Talk, the first round of the North American WGP online will have already taken place, so we may see some results of that happening.
Yeah, and again, we're very much an English Weiss channel, but at least in terms of format, there will be probably some things to talk about with that. And we'll have new releases by then. So, we won't have new releases by then. Adventure Time comes out in like 3 weeks. And also, it's possible that our next event has been moved up. It would have normally been on the 21st. It might be on the 14th instead. If that's the case, then next time we will be talking about how first event of Season 2/Season 1 of our local shop league went. So, a lot of things to talk about. Lots of things always going on, even when there's nothing going on. So stay tuned for all of that. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a good one.
We'll see you then.